Hello, everybody. My name is Eric D. Johnson. I was on the BrightShine right here in the city of Memphis in the county of 7 state, Tennessee. Today's date is Sunday afternoon, October the 20th, 2024. The time 12:13 p.m. First, I'm gonna say thank you to my family, my support, so you continue to continue to keep myself employed in Memphis, try to stay here, continue further my education, my work out line, continue pursue my social degree, study, being administrative contract mark. Present time, I took a break and going to school. In the future, I'm gonna go back to school and earn my social degree as well as other degrees. Now, what I'm gonna do right now, I'm gonna start my Facebook Live. Hello, everybody. My name is Eric D. Johnson. I was on the BrightShine right. I was on the BrightShine right here in the city of Memphis in the county of 7 state, Tennessee. Today's date is Sunday afternoon, October the 20th, 2024. The time 12:14 p.m. First, I thank you to my family, my support for you. Continue to keep myself employed. The Memphis tri-state area, continue to further my education, my work out online, continue to pursue my social degree, study, being administrative contract and mark. Spend time, took a break to school. In the future, I'm gonna go back to school and earn my social degree as well as other degrees. Now, the names of God in the Old Testament: El Shaddai, Jehovah Shalom, the Tetragrammaton, Yahweh, El Roy, Jehovah Roy, God's shepherd, Abba, Jehovah, Alpha and Omega, Jehovah Nissi, Jehovah Rapha, Jehovah Jireh, Jehovah Sikinu, Jehovah Sabaoth, Adonai, Lord Master, Jehovah Kedosh Kikim, Emmanuel, Elohim, El Elyon, Jehovah Shammah, Adonai, El Olam, Elohim, God the Creator, Mighty God, Jehovah, self-existent one. Names of God in the Old Testament. And these are being online. It's sources from the web, across the web. Now, New Testament. Now, New Testament names of God: Elohim, Adonai, Jehovah Jireh, Jehovah Shammah, Abba, God, our shepherd, El Shaddai, Jehovah Rapha, Jehovah Sikinu, Alpha and Omega, El Roy, Emmanuel, Kana, the Tetragrammaton, Yahweh, the Lord our banner, El Yon, Jehovah Roy, God the shepherd, El Olam, mighty God, holy, Now, these are sources. These are New Testament names of God. And these are sources across the web. So, if you by chance didn't hear like Christ or Emmanuel or Jesus or whatever, like I say, New Testament names of God, and sources across the web. So, now I'm going to click over here to BibleStudyTools.com. Now, the New International Version of the Holy Bible. The Bible verse of the day. Psalms 112, verse number 1. And it reads, Praise the Lord. Blessed are those who fear the Lord, who find great delight in his commands. And that's the Bible verse of the day. Reading from the New International Version of the Holy Bible. Now, today's Bible reading. The book of Revelation, chapters 21 and 22. The book of Isaiah, the 9th and 10th chapter. In the book of Psalms, chapter 111. And that's today's Bible reading. Okay, we have Bible study and Bible study video, and we have featured verse topics, and we have popular Bible verses such as John chapter 3 verse 16, the book of Genesis 1st chapter verse number 1, the book of Philippians chapter 4 verse number 6, the book of Philippians chapter 4 verse 13, the book of Romans chapter 12 verse number 2, the book of Romans chapter 8 verse 28, the book of Proverbs chapter 3 verse number 6, the book of Jeremiah chapter 29 verse number 11, the book of Proverbs chapter 3 verse number 5, the book of Matthew chapter 28 verse number 19. And we also have popular Bible commentaries as well as today's inspiration. It's coming from, what's it? Yeah. The book of Romans, chapter 8, verse 28. And it reads, And we know that in all things God works for the good of those who love him, who have been called according to his purpose. And again, that's today's inspiration, your daily verse, the book of Romans, chapter 8, verse 28. And let me, Bible versions. Yeah, Bible versions translate the best known translations, such as the Holman Christian Standard Bible, the English Standard Version, the King James Version, the Message Bible, the New American Standard Bible, the New International Version, the New King James Version, the New Living Translation, and the New Revised Standard Version of the Bible. You have other translations, modern, the Bible in Basic English, the Common English Bible, the Complete Jewish Bible, Good News Translation, God's Word Translation, Hebrew Names Version, Jubilee Bible 2000, Lexham English Bible, New Century Version, New International Reader's Version, the Orthodox Jewish Bible, Third Millennium Bible, World English Bible, Young's Literal Translation. You have older translation, the American Standard Version, the Darby translations, Dua, Reams Catholic Bible, Revised Standard Version, Tyndale Bible, Latin Vulgate Bible, Webster Bible, and the Wycliffe Bible. You have New Testament only Bible. Then you have Spanish, Portuguese, French, German, Italian, Dutch, and Chinese Bibles. Okay, and so like I said, we over here on BibleStudyTools.com. Let's click over to BibleGateway.com. Now, the verse of the day is reading from the New International Version. Psalms chapter 51, verse number 12, and it reads, Restore to me the joy of your salvation, and grant me a willing spirit to sustain me. And again, reading from the New International Version of the Holy Bible, the verse of the day. And it came from the book of Psalms, chapter 51, verse number 12. All right. All right. Read the Bible, available versions of the Holy Bible. You have language inversion, starting from A to Z. Amharic Bibles, a Musgo, Guerrero Bible, Arabic Bibles, a Wadi Bible, Bulgarian Bibles. Bono Bible, Cherokee Bible, this is Native American Bible. And it's a New Testament Bible. Surani Bible, Czechoslovakian Bible, Welsh Bible, Danish Bible, German Bible. There's a lot of English Bibles, a lot of Spanish Bibles. You have Persian Bibles. It's a Farsi New Testament Bible. You have Finnish Bibles, French Bibles, Greek Bibles, Gujarati Bible, Hebrew Bibles, Hindi Bible, Croatian Bibles. Now you have a Haitian Creole Bible, Hungarian Bibles, Hawaii Pidgin Bible, Icelandic Bible, Italian Bible, Japanese Bible, Quechua Bibles, Korean Bibles, Latin Bible, Luganda Bible, Maori Bible, Macedonian Bible, Marathi Bible, Mam Central, and Mam Toto Santos Bible, Low German Bible, Nepali Bible. You have Dutch Bibles, Norwegian Bibles, Chichewa Bibles, Oriya Bible, West Central Oromo Bibles, Punjabi Bible, Polish Bible, Papia Bible, Portuguese Bible, Quichua Bible, Kachi, Central Occidental Bible, Romanian Bible, Russian Bible, Slavic Bible, Somali Bible, Albanian Bible, Serbian Bible, Swedish, Swahili, Tamil, Thai Bible, Tagalog Bibles, Twi Bible, Ukrainian Bible, Urdu Bible, Ospantico Bible, Vietnamese Bible, Yoruba Bible, and Chinese Bibles. So like I said, we over here on BibleGateway.com. Now let's click over here to the Tetragrammaton. We over here on Wikipedia. Let me scroll down to the bottom. All right, let me see. Okay, you see also, and we have references. You got references with notes, all right, and citations. Then of course you got sources, and you got external links. So like I said, we over here on Wikipedia. The quick reference. The Tetragrammaton is the four-letter Hebrew theonym transliterated as capital Y, capital H, capital W, capital H, or capital Y, capital H, capital V, capital H, the name of God in the Hebrew Bible. The four letters written and read from right to left in Hebrew are Y-O-D-H, H-E-W-A-W, and H-E. The name may be derived from a verb that means to be, to exist, to cause to become, or to come to pass, while there is no consensus about the structure and etymology of the name. The form Yahweh is now accepted almost universally among biblical and Semitic linguistic scholars. though the vocalization Jehovah continues to have wide usage. The books of the Torah and the rest of the Hebrew Bible, except Esther, Ecclesiastes, and with a possible instance of, in verse 8-6, the Song of Songs, contain this Hebrew name. Observant Jews and those who follow Talmudic Jewish tradition do not pronounce nor do they read aloud proposed transcription forms such as Yahweh or Yehovah. Instead, they replace it with a different term, whether in addressing or referring to the God of Israel. Common substitutions in Hebrew are Adonai, literal translation, my lords, pluralis, majestatis, taken as singular. Or Elohim, literally gods, but treated as singular when meaning God in prayer. Or Hashim, the name in everyday speech. Now, those four letters properly written and read from right to left are, in biblical Hebrew, are Yod, He, Wah, He. Etymology. The Hebrew Bible explains it by the formula. Transliterated He, translated I am that I am, the name of God revealed to Moses in Exodus 3:14. This would frame capital Y, capital H, capital W, capital A as a derivation from the Hebrew triconsonantal root to be, become, come to pass, with a third person masculine Y prefix equivalent to English he in place of the first person, thereby avoiding translations as he who causes to exist, he who is, etc. Although this would elicit the form capital Y, capital H, capital Y, capital H, not capital Y, capital H, capital W, capital H. To rectify this, some scholars propose that the tetragrammaton derived instead from the triconsonantal root HWH itself an archaic doublet of, with the final form eliciting similar translations as those derived from the same. As such, the consensus among modern scholars considers that capital Y, capital H, capital W, capital H represents a verbal form, with the Y representing the third masculine verbal prefix of the verb HYH to be, as indicated in the Hebrew Bible. The vocalizations. Like all letters in the Hebrew script, the letters in Y, capital H, capital W, capital H, originally indicated consonants. In unpointed biblical Hebrew, most vowels are not written, but some are indicated ambiguously, as certain letters came to have a secondary function indicating vowels, similar to the Latin use of I and V to indicate either the consonants J, W, or the vowels I, U. Hebrew letters used to indicate vowels are known as or matrix lectionis, mothers of reading. Therefore, it can be difficult to deduce how a word is pronounced from its spelling, and each of the four letters in the tetragrammaton can individually serve as a matrix lectionis. Several centuries later, between the 5th through 10th century CE, the original consonantal text of the Hebrew Bible was provided with vowel marks by the Masoretes to assist reading. In places where the word to be read, the kiri, differed from that indicated by the consonants of the written text, the keter. They wrote the kiri in the margin as a note showing what was to be read. In such a case, the vowels marks of the kiri were written on the keter. For a few frequent words, the marginal note was omitted. These are called kiri perpetuum. Now, one of the frequent cases was the Tetragrammaton, which according to later rabbinic Jewish practices should not be pronounced but read as Adonai, literal translate, my lords, pluralis majestatis, taken as singular, or if the previous or next word already was Adonai as Elohim, God, writing the vowel diacritics of these two words on the consonants, capital Y, capital H, capital V, capital H produces, and respectively ghost words that will spell Yehovah or Yehovah and Yehovah respectively. The oldest complete or nearly complete manuscripts of the Masoretic text with Tiberian vocalization, such as the Aleppo Codex and the Leningrad Codex, both of the 10th or 11th century, mostly write Yahweh with no pointing on the first H. It could be because the O diacritic point plays no useful role in distinguishing between Adonai and Elohim, and so it's redundant. Or it could point to the Kiri being, which is Aramaic for the name, Yahweh. The scholarly consensus is that the original pronunciation of the Tetragrammaton was Yahweh. Reno agrees. That when in the late first millennium, Jewish scholars inserted indications of vowels into the Hebrew vowel. They signaled that what was pronounced was Adonai, Lord. Non-Jews later combined the vowels of Adonai with the consonants of the Tetragrammaton and invented the name Jehovah. Paul June and Takamitsu Murake state the Kiri is the Lord, whilst the Ketiv is probably, according to ancient witnesses, and they add note 1 in our translation, we have used Yahweh, a form widely accepted by scholars instead of the traditional Jehovah. In 1869, Smith's Bible Dictionary, a collaborative work of noted scholars of that time, declared, whatever therefore be the true pronunciation of the word, there can be little doubt that it is not Jehovah. Mark P. Honor remarks that certain conclusions drawn from the pronunciation of as Yahweh would be valid even if the scholarly consensus were not correct. Thomas Romer holds that the original pronunciation of Yahweh was Yeho or Yehu. Max Riesel in the mysterious name of Yahweh said that the vocalization of the tetragram must originally have been Yahuwah or the element Yahweh is found in Amorite personal names, commonly denoted as the semantic equivalent of the Akkadian. The latter refers to one existence which in the context of deities can also refer to one's eternal existence, which aligns with Bible verses such as Exodus 3:15 and views that can mean I am the existing one. It also explains the ease of Israelites applying the Olam or everlasting epithet from El to Yahweh. But J. Philip Hyatt believes it is more likely that Yahweh refers to a God creating and sustaining the life of a newborn child rather than the universe. This conception of God was more popular among ancient Near Easterners, but eventually the Israelites removed the association of Yahweh to any human ancestor and combined it with other elements. Halil bin Sasson states that there is insufficient evidence for Amorites using Yahweh to refer to a god, but he argues that it mirrors other theophoric names and that Yahweh, or more accurately, Yahweh, derives from the root, which means he will be. The adoption at the time of the Protestant Reformation of Jehovah in place of the traditional Lord in some new translations, vernacular or Latin, of the biblical tetragram stirred up dispute about its correctness. In 1711, Adrian Reeland published a book containing the text of the 17th century writings, 5 attacking and 5 defending it. As critical of the use of Jehovah, it incorporated writings by Johannes van den Driesch, (1550–1660), known as Jusius, Sixtinus, Mama, 1593–1629, Louis Capel, 1585–1658, Johannes Buxtorf, (1564–1629), Jacob Outling, (1618–1679). Defending Jehovah were writings by Nicholas Fuller, 1557–1626, and Thomas Gallagher, 1574–1654, and 3 essays by Johann Lusden, 1624–1699. The opponents of Jehovah said that the tetragrammaton should be pronounced as Adonai, and in general do not speculate on what may have been the original pronunciation, although mention is made of the fact that some held that Javi was their pronunciation. Almost 2 centuries after the 17th century works reprinted by Reeland, 19th century Wilhelm Gesenius reported in his Thesaurus Philologicus on the main reasoning of those who argued either for as the original pronunciation of the tetragrammaton as opposed to Jehovah. He explicitly cited the 17th century writers mentioned by Reeland as supporters of, as well as implicitly citing Johann David Michaelis, of 1717–1791, and Johann Friedrich von Meyer, 1772–1849. The latter of whom Johann Heinrich Kurtz described as the last of those who have maintained with great pertinacity that was the correct and original point. Edward Robertson's translation of a work by Gesenius gives Gesenius' personal view as my own view coincides with that of those who regard his name as anciently pronounced Yahweh, like the Samaritans. And I'm quite certain, talking about this Protestant Reformation, you notice that a lot of this European, German, these German-speaking people, that's where a lot of this is coming from. The Protestant Reformation, and a lot of it coming from these German-speaking people, like in the Netherlands and in Germany, and also over in the United Kingdom. That's what you start noticing, all this kind of stuff. And you have non-biblical texts with the Tetragrammaton. Of course, the Hebrew Bible. Now, when it comes to the Dead Sea Scrolls and other Hebrew and Aramaic texts, the Tetragrammaton and some other names of God in Judaism, such as El or Elohim, were sometimes written in Paleo-Hebrew script. And they're saying that Paleo-Hebrew script, Paleo-Hebrew proto, it is the writing system found in Canaanite and Aramaic inscription, including pre-biblical and biblical Hebrew from southern Canaan, also known as the biblical kingdoms of Israel, Samaria, and Judah, showing that they were treated specially. Most of God's names were pronounced until about the 2nd century BCE. Then, as a tradition of non-pronunciation of the names developed, alternatives for the Tetragrammaton appeared, such as Adonai, Kyrios, and Theos. A Greek fragment of Leviticus 26, chapter 2, verse 16, discovered in the Dead Sea Scrolls, Qumran, Leo has Leo. The Greek form of the Hebrew Trigrammaton. The historian John the Lydian in the 6th century wrote the Roman Varro 116-27 BC, defining him that is the Jewish God, said that he is called Leo in the Chaldean mysteries. Van Kooten mentions that Leo is one of the specifically Jewish designations for God. And the Aramaic papyri from the Jews at Elephantine show that Leo is an original Jewish term. The preserved manuscript from Qumran show the inconsistent practice of writing the Tetragrammaton, mainly in biblical quotation. In some manuscripts, it's written in Paleo-Hebrew script, square scripts, or replaced with 4 dots or dashes, tetrapuncta. The members of the Qumran community were aware of the existence of the Tetragrammaton, but this was not tantamount to granting consent for its existing use in speaking. This is evidenced not only by a special treatment of the Tetragrammaton in the text, but by the recommendation recorded in the Rule of Association. Who will remember the most glorious name, which is above all? Okay, the table below presents all the manuscripts in which the Tetragrammaton is written in Paleo-Hebrew script, in square scripts, and in all the manuscripts in which the copyists have used tetrapuncta. Copies use the tetrapuncta apparently to warn against pronouncing the name of God. And your manuscript number 4Q248 is in the form of bars. Okay. And also, now we were talking about the Dead Sea Scroll. So now we're talking about the Septuagint. Editions of the Septuagint Old Testament are based on the complete or almost complete 4th century manuscripts. Codex Vaticanus, Codex Sinaiticus, and Codex Alexandrinus, and consistently used, Lord, where the Masoretic text has the tetragrammaton in Hebrew. This corresponds with the Jewish practice of replacing the tetragrammaton with Adonai when reading the Hebrew Bible. However, 5 of the oldest manuscripts now extant in fragmentary form render the tetragrammaton into Greek in a different way. 2 of these are of the 1st century BCE. Papyrus phone 266 uses in the normal Hebrew alphabet in the midst of its Greek text, and 4Q120 uses the Greek transcription of the name IAQ. 3 later manuscripts, the name in Paleo-Hebrew script, the Greek minor prophets scroll from. Other extant ancient fragments of Septuagint or Old Greek manuscripts provide no evidence on the use of the tetragrammaton and correspond with the Hebrew text tetragrammaton. They include the oldest known example, Papyrus Rylands. And the Papyrus Rylands 450 is a manuscript of the Pentateuch in the Greek Septuagint version of the Hebrew Bible. It is a roll made from papyrus which has survived in a very fragmentary condition. All right. Okay, so again, when they talk about the Paleo Hebrew script, the Greek minor prophet scroll from the Hall Hebrew, that is a Greek manuscript of a revision of the Septuagint dated to the 1st century BC and the 1st century CE. And now again, pay attention. It said it's a revision of the Septuagint dating to the 1st century BC and the 1st century CE. Then you got a Papyrus Auricus, is a small fragment of the Greek Septuagint written in papyrus in scroll form as one of the manuscripts discovered at Zorinchus. It has been cataloged with the number 3522. Paleographically, it has been dated to the 1st century CE. And then you got this other papyrus, Orinchus 5101. It is a manuscript of the Greek Septuagint Psalms written on papyrus in roll form. It has survived in a very fragmentary condition, used instead of comparative writing styles, paleography. And they date it to it says it's been used as a comparative writing style. It has been dated to the middle of the 2nd century CE. It said that and it's one of the Psalms. And so, like I said, when it comes to the Septuagint, other extant ancient fragments of Septuagint or Old Greek manuscripts provide no evidence on the use of the tetragrammaton and correspond with the Hebrew text tetragrammaton. They include the oldest known example, Papyrus Ryland. There again, Papyrus Ryland. It is a roll made from papyrus, which has survived in a very fragmentary condition. It is designated by the number 957 on the list of Septuagint manuscripts. according to the numbering system devised by biblical scholar Alfred, using the study of comparative writing style paleography. The manuscript has been dated to the middle of the 2nd century BCE. That's a long time. It said the manuscript has been dated to the middle of the 2nd century BCE. And saying before the discovery of the Dead Sea Scrolls, it was the oldest known manuscript of the Greek Bible. It has been invariably used in discussions around whether the Greek Septuagint translation used either the Tetragrammaton, name of God, in Hebrew, or the Greek title, Kyrios, Lord. Okay, so let me click back over. And of course, we have patristic writings in the Vulgate. So when you start getting into the patristics, you start talking about in the 1st century. The Peshitta, the Vulgate, all right, and usage in religious tradition, Judaism, Kabbalah. But like I said, the Tetragrammaton, that's a serious thing. That's very serious. See, that's the reason why all this stuff about this Protestant. And then they found all this, they found the Dead Sea Scroll, then they found all these fragments. And like they found the one we just got to read, it dates all the way back to BCE. It dates all the way back to BCE. And like they said, like I clicked back over to that Papyrus Writings because it's the oldest. And it said before the discovery of the Dead Sea Scroll, it was the oldest known manuscript of the Greek Bible. It has been invariably used in discussion around whether the Greek Septuagint translation used either the Tetragrammaton, name of God, in Hebrew, or the Greek title, Kyrios, Lord. And again, when they say the history of the scroll, it said due to its very early assigned date to the mid-2nd century BCE, it is currently one of the oldest known manuscripts of the Septuagint. It is believed it came from the Fayum in Egypt, where there were 2 Jewish synagogues. And said the manuscript was discovered in 1917 by biblical scholar J. Randall Harry. It was examined by A. Vicari in 1936 and biblical scholar Albert Partasma 1985. The text was edited by papyrologist C. H. Robertson in 1936. And saying that the manuscript is currently housed at the John Rylands Library in Manchester, given the manuscript. But you see how important this is? See, this is the reason why when them Protestants was running their mouth them Protestants were running their mouth, being arrogant. You see, when they found this, 1917, they found this fragment in 1917. So when you go back, so let's scroll back. Let me click back over. When these people were running their mouth over in Germany, let me scroll all the way back up to the Protestant Reformation. Now this is important now. You'll see, this is important. The adoption at the time of the Protestant Reformation of Jehovah in place of the traditional Lord in some new translation. See, they haven't found a lot of these manuscripts in the Dead Sea Scroll. They found the Dead Sea Scroll in 1946. And the oldest manuscript fragments of the Greek Bible, they found it in 1917. Talking about the Tetragrammaton. And again, when you're talking about these people over in Germany, over in Western Europe, these German-speaking people, talking about they Protestants, talking about Jehovah, they hadn't found. A lot of the information had not been discovered. But a lot of those people that we was talking about in the Protestant, that's where they came from. Germany, the Netherlands, the United Kingdom. That's where a lot of this Protestant Reformation, that's where it come from. The Baptist Church, the Methodist Church, the Lutherans. That's where they come from, Western Europe, those German-speaking countries. And, of course, they left Europe and came over here to the United States of America. And then you had this what? The Church of Christ. The American Restoration Movement, the Stone Campbell Movement. That's here in America. So like I said, it's important to highlight, you know what I'm saying, and expose their ignorance. To expose their ignorance. The Protestant Reformation. And then they have all these discoveries. And you talking about, it was some, who was that? What was that? Let me scroll back up. Talking about some non-Jews. What was that? Vocalization, etymology, tetragrammaton, name, and okay, that was Yahweh. It says the scholarly consensus that the original pronunciation of the tetragrammaton was Yahweh. Then R. Reno agrees that when in the late first millennium, Jewish scholars inserted indications of vowels into the Hebrew vowel. They signaled that what was pronounced was Adonai, Lord. Non-Jews later combined the vowels of Adonai with the consonants of the Tetragrammaton and invented the name Jehovah. So it's important that you emphasize how important the Jewish scholars are. Because you're talking about these so-called Protestant Reformation, the adoption at the time of the Protestant Reformation of Jehovah in place of the traditional Lord in some new translation, vernacular or Latin of the biblical Tetragrammaton stirred up dispute about its correctness. And it should be a dispute. Being arrogant for no reason. It should be a dispute. Anti-gay, anti-Gnostic, anti-hazing. Also, adversus, heresies, translated mean against heresies. Saint Irenaeus, the Bishop of Lyons, together with Saint Ignatius, the Bishop of Antioch, wrote a 5-volume book refuting Gnosticism, proving that Gnosticism was a heresy. Also, Saint Athanasius, the Bishop of Alexandria, in his 39th Festal letter, Easter letter, banned all non-Christian writing. Saint Athanasius, Bishop of Alexandria, together with all the other bishops in the Catholic Church, went around and collected all that Gnostic theologian writing and destroyed it. Some of that Gnostic theologian writing did get destroyed. For example, the Askew Codex, the Berlin Codex, the Bruce Codex, the Nagamine Library did not get destroyed. Also, St. Epiphanius of Salome, the Bishop of Cyprus, wrote a 3-volume book titled Panarium, Greek, Panarium, Latin, translated meaning bread basket. The scholars at the colleges and universities around the world also said that St. Epiphanius of Salome, Bishop of Cyprus, 3-volume book is also adversus heresies, against heresies. And see, this is what the sororities and the fraternities, the sohos and the frat bitches, they take Gnosticism, which is nothing. And because okay, let me see. Okay, here we go. Now, we don't want to leave Judaism out. Heresy in Judaism. Jewish heresy refers to those beliefs which contradict the traditional doctrines of rabbinic Judaism, including theological beliefs and opinions about the practice of halakha, which is Jewish religious law. Jewish tradition contains a range of statements about heretics, including laws for how to deal with them in a communal context and statements about the divine punishment they are expected to receive. Now pay attention. Rabbinic definition of heresy. In the Talmudic era, the Greek term for heresy originally denoted division, sect, which is S-E-C-T, religious or philosophical party, is applied by Josephus to the 3 Jewish sects of Sadducees, Pharisees, and Essenes, in the sense of a schism to be deprecated. The word occurs in 1 Corinthians 11:19, Galatians 5:20, and particularly in 2 Peter 2:1. Hence, heretic in the sense of factious, Titus 2:10. The specific, pay attention, the specific rabbinical term for heresies or religious divisions due to an unlawful spirit is manim. Literally, kinds of belief. The singular, men, for heretic or Gnostic is coined idiomatically like Goy and Amharitz. See Gnosticism. The law, you shall not cut yourselves, is interpreted by the rabbi. You shall not form divisions, but shall form one bond. After Amos 9:6. Besides the term men for heretic, the Talmud uses the words hisonim, outsiders, epikoros, and kofar b'Torah, and kofar b'ikar, he who denies the fundamentals of faith. Also, porish mem, daki tzibo, he who deviates from the customs of the community. Religious fundamentalists claim that all these groups are consigned to Gehanom for all eternity. and have no possibility of a portion in the world to come. I'm gonna read a little more. Pay attention. The Mishnah in Sanhedrin 10:1 says the following: have no share in the world to come. One who says there is no resurrection of the dead derived from the Torah, and one who says the Torah did not originate from heaven, and an Epikoros. Rabbi Akiva says also one who reads external literature, Hebrew. This is explained in books of heretics. Sefer Manim. The biblical verse, so that you do not follow your heart and eyes, is explained as you should not turn to heretic views, minute, which lead your heart away from God. The Birkat Ha-Manim is a curse on heretics. The belief that the curse was directed at Christians was sometimes cause for persecution of Jews. Modern scholarship has generally evaluated that the Birkat Ha-Manim probably did originally include Jewish Christians before Christianity became markedly a Gentile and, in the eyes of the rabbinic sages, idolatrous religion. So again, when it comes to Gnostic, in Judaism, you're a heretic. And that's what the word is, Hamim. Manim. Excuse me. It wasn't Hamim. It's Manim. The singular mean for heretic or Gnostic. In Hebrew, in Judaism, that was during the Talmudic era. Now, while we see Hippolytus of Rome was a bishop of Rome, one of the most important 2nd, 3rd century Christian theologians whose providence, identity, and Corbin remain elusive to scholars and historians. Suggested communities include Rome, Palestine, Egypt, Anatolia, and other regions of the Middle East. The best historians of literature in the ancient church include Eusebius of Caesarea and Jerome. Openly confess they cannot name where Hippolytus, the biblical commentator and theologian, served in leadership. They had read his work but did not possess evidence of his community. Photius I of Constantinople described him in his Bibliotheca as a disciple of Irenaeus, who was said to be a disciple of Polycarp, and from the context of this passage, it is supposed that he suggested that Hippolytus so styled himself. This assertion is doubtful. One older theory asserts he came into conflict with the popes of his time and seems to have headed a schismatic group as a rival to the Bishop of Rome, thus becoming an anti-pope. In this view, he opposed the Roman popes who softened the penitential system to accommodate the large number of new pagan converts. However, he was reconciled to the church before he died as a martyr. Starting in the 4th century, various legends arose about him, identifying him as a priest of the Novatianist schism or as a soldier converted by St. Lawrence. He has also been confused with another martyr of the same name. Pope Pius IV identifies him as Saint Hippolytus, Bishop of Pontus, who was martyred in the reign of Severus Alexander through his inscription on a statue found at the Church of St. Lawrence in Rome and kept at the Vatican as photographed and published in Bunsen. It said now about his life. Little is known for certain about his community of origin. One Victorian theory suggests that as a presbyter of the church at Rome under Pope Zephyrinus 199 to 217 AD, Hippolytus was distinguished for his learning and eloquence. It was at this time that Origen, then a young man, heard him preach. In this view, Hippolytus accused Pope Zephyrinus of modalism, the heresy which held that the names Father and Son are simply different names for the same subject. Hippolytus championed the Logos doctrine of the Greek apologists, most notably Justin Martyr, which distinguished the Father from the Logos word. An ethical conservative, he was scandalized when Pope Calixtus 217 to 222 AD extended absolution to Christians who had committed grave sins such as adultery. Some suggest Hippolytus himself advocated a pronounced rigorism. At this time, he seems to have allowed himself to be elected as a rival bishop of Rome and continued to attack Pope Urban 222 to 230 AD and Pope Pontian 230 to 235 AD. G. Simon suggests that Hippolytus was the leader of the Greek-speaking Christians of Rome. Alan Brent sees the development of Roman house churches into something akin to Greek philosophical schools gathered around a compelling teacher. Also under this view, during the persecution at the time of Emperor Maximus Thrax, Hippolytus and Pontian were exiled together in 235 to Sardinia, likely dying in the mines. It is quite probable that before his death there he was reconciled to the other party at Rome, for under Pope Fabian 236 to 250 AD. His body and that of Pontian were brought to Rome. The so-called chronography of 354, more precisely, the Liberian catalog reports that on August 13, probably in 236, the two bodies were interred in Rome. That of Hippolytus in the cemetery on the Via Tiburtina, his funeral being conducted by Justin the Confessor. This document indicates by about 255 Hippolytus was considered a martyr and gives him the rank of a priest, not a bishop, and indicating that before his death the schematic was received again into the church. Now, scroll down to where his writings. Controversy surrounds the corpus of the writer Hippolytus. In the Victorian era, scholars claim that his principal work to be the refutation of all heresies. Of his 10 books, Book 1 was the most important. It was long known. It was printed with the title Philosophia among the works of Origen. Books 2 and 3 are lost, and books 4 through 10 were found without the name of the author in a monastery of Mount Athos in 1842. Emmanuel Miller published them in 1851 under the title Philosophia, attributing them to Origen of Alexandria. Recent scholarship prefers to treat the text as the work of an unknown author, perhaps of Roman origin. Now, the refutation of all heresies, also called the Elichus or Philosophia, the Philosophia, is a compendious Christian polemical work of the early 3rd century, whose attribution to Hippolytus of Rome or an unknown pseudo-Hippolytus is disputed. It catalogs both pagan beliefs and 33 Gnostic Christian systems deemed heretical by the authors and or compilers, making it a major source of information on contemporary opponents of Christian Orthodox as understood today. The first book, a synopsis of Greek philosophy, circulated separately in several manuscripts and was known as the Philosophia, Greek, a title which so extends to the whole work. Books 4 through 10 were recovered in 1842 in a manuscript at Mount Athos, while books 2 and 3 remain lost. The work was long attributed to the early Christian theologian Origen. And again, then you see the contents. It's divided into 10 books, 8 of which have survived more or less intact. Books 2 and 3, however, have not been unearthed, and their contents remain the subject of conjecture. And so, like I said, they got book 1, books 2 and 3 lost, and books 4 through 10, 4 through 10. And so, like I said, it catalogs both pagan beliefs, and it catalogs 33 Gnostic Christian systems deemed heretical by the authors and or compilers, making it a major source of information on contemporary opponents of Christian Orthodoxy as understood today. So you can keep on trying that nonsense, you're going to just get punished. Anal sex. And so, like I said, you can try to bring up something about Hippolytus or Rome, but the information in that book, you can sit around and try to pretend like that's supposed to make it unimportant, or you ain't got to worry about the refutation of all heresies by trying to talk about who Hippolytus of Rome is and all that. But the information talking about these pagan sects and these 33 Gnostic Christian sects that keep being exposed, that includes these people that's walking around today trying to have anal sex. See, the sorority and fraternity, the sohos and the frat bitch going around being self-destructive and destructive. You know what I'm saying? Going around trying to destroy wildlife, nature, and the environment. Trying to destroy the North and South Pole. You know what I'm saying? Now they're trying to go out in space. Trying to do the same thing. Talking about claiming, making these absurd claims, talking about the material world is evil. Oh, it ain't nothing wrong with having anal sex. The material world is evil. The Almighty, Conservative, Vice Lord, Four Corner Hustle. The Almighty, Black, Prince Stone. The Almighty, Mickey, Coverstone, Cracker. The Almighty, Black, Disciple, Partner. The Almighty, Bluefin, Black Disciple, the Black Disciple. Lord, Stone, Disciple. Gangster, Disciple Killer, GDK. Glazed Donut Killer, GDK. 7-11, G Killer. Goofy. See, it's important when you're trying to promote narcissism. You trying to promote anal sex. See, you get to the root of this nonsense, and it goes all the way back. It's a historical thing. People fight wars and all this kind of stuff, and talking about what you believe about. See, you just like saying Yahweh, and in the history of Yahweh is already a historical fact about polytheism and about saying Yahweh, and then you come into this monotheism, this Judaism. See, all this stuff about anal sex, about having all these wars, and people get displaced and trying to stand up. Ain't no woman finna stand up to all this and these men. So about what you believe. See, you'll have some homosexual man and then a bisexual man, and then you talking about a woman. Oh, that's not right what you're doing. Ain't no woman finna, and then there ain't no police department that's finna go around and investigate and some woman got killed by a homosexual. You know, you see what I'm talking? We talking about way back. BCE. And you know, talking about a woman. And then you talking about all these people fighting wars and stuff. No woman, physically, you ain't finna stand up, no man, bust you upside the head with a vase and try to beat you with a stick and beat you to death and burn you to death and all this other stuff. Stab you to death and all this. And you trying to tell some man talking about that ain't right and all this. Excuse me. A homosexual or a bisexual. The bisexual man, the woman attacked the homosexual and then, the bisexual man, he in love with the homosexual. He got mad at the woman and killed her. Or vice versa. The homosexual got mad and killed the woman. Then the bisexual man got mad at the homosexual and then later killed him. Because he in love with the woman and in love with the man and all this, all this kind of confused. It's all anal sex. And all the way up from then to now. About what you believe. You do all that because of anal sex. All that. You don't want and think about today. You don't want nobody else to be on TV. You don't want nobody to be on radio because of anal sex. If you don't want to agree to anal sex, then you can't be on television. You can't be on the radio. You can't even get a job. That's what the sorority and the fraternity do. Go behind my back and everybody else's back for anal sex. Start a gang, anal sex. That was bullying little children. Elementary school, junior high school. Bullying, anal sex. See, you get into the root of it. See, you try to disguise it and try to hide. No, it's anal sex. Being harassed on your job is anal sex. When you live in a community, it's anal sex. It's a game. What is it? Anal sex. Just being violent. Anal sex. That's all it is. Anal sex. That's all it is to it. Anal sex. Get straight to the point. Don't beat around the bush. Get straight to the point. Anal sex. You know. See, they do that. They do it.
Alright.
Okay, here we go. Now this stupid gangster disciple nonsense. This peon Larry Hoover. And then that goes for that black gangster new breed, a bunch of peons. Now, as you know, Lord Stone disciple. You can't stand on a lie. Lord Stone disciple. Elvin Pepperlo Perry. Real. True. Jeff Ford. Black P Stones. Real. True. King David Bosdale, Black Disciples. Real. True. And see, and not being left out, Mickey Caldwell, the Mickey Cobras, the 21 Bricks, the Mickey Cobra Stones. Real. True. Let me just touch on something. All right, this the Lord Stone's disciples. See, you can't stand on a lie. That's what you've been doing with this Gnostic nonsense. Just lying, because that's what that is, a lie. Then you had the nerve to try to impose, force Gnosticism on any and everybody. And don't even know what you talking about. Then had the nerve to go around talking about that person here don't know, this person here don't know what they talking about, and all this kind of mess. That's just like that blood gang, that Crip gang out there in Los Angeles, California. Because they from down here. They from Tennessee. They from Mississippi. They from Louisiana. They from Alabama. That's where they came from. They came from Texas and Oklahoma and all that stuff like that. That's where the Crips and the Bloods came from. They came from down here. Now I'm going to read this little part here about the Black Disciple. The Black Disciple history is indeed a fascinating history and a great story of how young preteen boys got together and formed an organization that will help fight against the civil rights injustice and wild gangs around them. In 1950s, there was a contested and growing African American community in the Inglewood and northern Hyde Park areas. African Americans reside in Hyde Park in the older section of the community north of 55th Street. Now that the area is more affordable for struggling African American families, many landlords purchased large mansions in the community and converted them into tenement apartments that were affordable. This upset the southern Hyde Park, mostly white, wealthy elites residing south of 55th Street. These elites had been politically fighting against African American migration into Hyde Park for decades prior. In Inglewood, the community was suffering deterioration and blight as multiple buildings were crumbling and poverty set in. By the 1950s, the community remained mostly white until the later 50s, but more African American families were migrating to Inglewood as white flight set in. Block busting practices became strong in Inglewood and northern Hyde Park as real estate took advantage of many white families' fears that their community was to become bankrupted by African American migration. This allowed landlords to buy the houses from the panicking white families and convert their old homes into tenement apartments for the poor while neglecting these properties afterward. Disparate, impoverished African American and white families moved into these tenements, which upset the mostly white middle class. Many white families could not afford to leave Inglewood, so they stuck around and created racial clashes with African Americans. White gangs formed that were of a violent breed that were heavily opposed to African American migration. Much of the African American middle class arrived in northern Hyde Park and Inglewood, but soon found these communities were not welcoming or were on the verge of collapse. But it was too late. They already bought the homes. In the year 1953, African American street gangs began to form in Inglewood, like the Inglewood Boys and the 75th Street Brims. These gangs dealt with the worst of the racial battles. The Brims were in the far southern part of Inglewood and even drifted into the neighboring Greater Grand Crossing neighborhood. I'm not sure if the Brims and Inglewood Boys were allies or not. I've also heard that Imperial Chaplains and Clovers, who were the biggest African American gangs on the west side, were in the Inglewood area during these more mid 50 years, but I cannot confirm that. In the year 1958, construction began on the Dan Ryan Expressway, which successfully uprooted a portion of Inglewood, Washington Park, Roseland, Morgan Park, and Fuller Park. This mainly affected the impoverished African American community in these neighborhoods, all by design. Many impoverished African Americans had to move in a pinch in areas like Inglewood and Northern Hyde Park was all that was available and affordable. These mostly white areas became further enraged and the racial differences went full scale. This is when Laverne gathered many African American youths in the Inglewood and Northern Hyde Park areas, mostly consisting of boys between the ages of 11, 13 years old, alongside the Inglewood Boys and 75th Street Brims, who were older boys. I am not positive, but it's possible Laverne and another named Richard Champ Strong were possible members of the Inglewood Boys or the Brims. It became decided to come together as one major force to be reckoned with to battle these racial issues, but to also deal with the aggressive Egyptian Cobras that were now growing in the Inglewood and Hyde Park area. The Cobras were another African American gang that started in 1958 and were aggressively growing on the south side. The boys decided to flip through the Holy Bible to get ideas, and that's when it dawned on them to use the name disciple in their title. The boys then added on the prefix devils to get a name and intimidating edge to it. After that was decided, the disciples simultaneously at 43rd Street in Kenwood and scattered throughout Inglewood. A disciples group known as the East Side Disciples was a group that started at 43rd and spread all the way south into Hyde Park to 53rd and Kimbar. 53rd and Kimbar became East Side Disciple headquarters and basically the headquarters for all citywide disciples. However, Inglewood disciples tended to gather at 63rd and Stewart. Some founder members were Richard Champ Strong, who was nominated as the first leader of the disciples, David Barsdale, D. Steele, Mingo Shred, Prince Oldtimer, Rob Allen, Kilroy Dawson, Byron Big Shoe Coffee, Leonard Longstreet, Nightwalker, Laverne, and various others. The disciples kept their business out of the press. The disciples established headquarters at the Hyde Park intersection of 53rd and Kimbar, which became their very first stronghold. The disciples created the symbols of the Star of David, the pitchfork, and devil's tail with devil horn when they formed in 1958. Now, scroll down a little bit. Now that we began the story with the creation of the disciples, now let's look into the formation of the gangsters. This took place in Inglewood in the year 1964. More specifically at 68th and Green. A group of 30 young black youths got together at this intersection as they hung out in Larry Hoover's home and watched outside the window as gangsters and pimps hung out in the parking lot of the Guys and Gals nightclub that used to exist at that intersection. These boys wanted to be just like these pimps and gangsters, and they were living on the border of Ranger and Disciple territory. Larry Hoover was inspired to be a leader of gangsters and began dressing himself very well to fit the role. Eventually, these boys created their own club called the Supreme Gangsters, which was Larry Hoover's idea for the club name. Larry Hoover himself was not the first official leader, but more of a behind-the-scenes type leader. How Hoover teamed up with street hustler Andrew D.D. Howard and Ike King Taylor and made King Ike his right-hand man. The Supreme Gangsters wore the color black, and their symbol wore a heart with wings and a round crown with a sword going through it. The Supreme Gangsters saluted each other with a clenched fist as their hand sign. See, this is what all that anal sex, narcissism. It was some gangsters and hustlers hanging outside Larry Hoover's house and at the corner of 68th and Green. And they were living on the border of Ranger and Disciple territory. And they were looking out the window, gangsters and pimps outside. See, this is how all this nonsense called narcissism, anal sex. All right. So as you know, as you can see, there wasn't no need for that because Lord Stone disciple. Now, the black gangster new breed. Now we will go to the beginning of the breed history. The breed history on the streets begins in the year 1969 in the North Lawndale neighborhood at the intersection of 19th to 16th in Cat's Eye, right near Douglas Park. The original gang was called the Goon Squad or Goon Squad Gangsters. Its possible founder was named Rab. This was a group of rather violent and crazy youth that were quick with the trigger. They had violent gang wars with the vice lords, especially traveling vice lords, and were recognized by police as far back as 1969 and even made the newspaper. A few times dating back to 1969, the Goons made the newspaper 3 times, beginning in 1969, again 1970, and finally in 1972. All 3 times the Goons were involved in violent crime. Booney was not part of this gang, despite what many believe. He was a 31-year-old man and in prison at the time, would not be the leader of teenagers shooting and stabbing rivals in the streets while making the newspaper. The Goons get lots of credit, though, because they were starting during a time when North Lawndale was untouchable for new gangs to form, because the vice lords and Egyptian cobras ruled their whole neighborhood with an iron fist. The vice lords alone ran it from Pulaski to Douglas Park, but the Goons dared to challenge them. The Goons were perhaps more violent than the vice lords, which would later get them noticed by the black gangsters once their leadership ended up in prison. Goons lived up to their name and would later work as murder for hire types, just like the black gangsters in Booney. The next part of this story begins in the year 1972 in Statesville's maximum security prison in Crest Hill, Illinois. An inmate by the name of Julius Davis joined in with a semi-religious group called the Cosmos, which happened to be a group of Chicago gang members from the west side of Chicago. I do not know what gang Julius Davis was a member of, but he organized the men to create their own crime syndicate that would become the Royal Family. Members of this group were in street gangs like Black Gangster, Disciple, and Vice Lord, and they were some of the most hardcore gang members of these gangs that set aside their rivalry to be a part of the Royal Family. One of the prominent members was Maurice King Baldy Jackson. The men that joined the Royal Family were scheduled to be released from prison in 1972, and they planned on coming together once released and going on a crime spree and letting nothing get in their way. It's interesting to me how all these men just so happen to be released at the same time. This leads me to believe the Royal Family consulted with Jeepers for their legal advice, and perhaps Jeepers helped them to fight their legal battles and get released. Additionally, Jeepers was well known to be a colorful storyteller who loved to share his criminal exploits of being a stick-up man. A theorizer is very possible he told these stick-up stories to the Royal Family and inspired them to begin this armed robbery spree they were about to embark upon when released. Doing stick-ups became the early pastime of the Royal Family, and they may have helped along with advice from Jeepers himself while they were all locked up together. Jeepers was in prison in the early 70s, so it is very possible. One thing to clarify though, the violence that was committed along the way of the Royal Family's robbery would have not been part of Jeepers' advice. Jeepers was never a violent man in any way, shape, or form. Jeepers was said to be a good man and kind-hearted. All right. Okay, so I'm not gonna go too far because but that new breed should have never got. As you can see, again, there wasn't no reason for that, and should have never got away with it. But narcissism, anal sex. Hey, when you say narcissism, hey, we just got through reading about the heretics. See, when you talk about Judaism and what's a heretic, we just got through reading it. It tell you what a heretic is. In Judaism, in Hebrew, men. Men. We just got through reading it. Gnostic, a faction during the Talmudic era. See, in the Hebrew, in Judaism, you're a heretic. And that's what the meaning of Gnostic means in Hebrew. You're a heretic. Judaism does not accept you. You're a heretic. Now we over here on Wikipedia. Scroll down. References. Further reading. Okay. You have to always remember. See, it's a library. Here in the United States of America, in all 50 states and U.S. territory, you have a library. A main library. College universities have a library. Citations, footnotes, references, and sources. You got, it's important that you know that. All right, Jewish principles of faith. Judaism does not centralize authority in a single individual or group. The formulation of principles of faith that are universally recognized by all branches of Judaism. Let me click on that. Branches of Judaism. Jewish religious movements, sometimes called denominations, include diverse groups within Judaism which have developed among Jews from ancient times. Today, in the West, the most prominent divisions are between traditionalist Orthodox movements, including Haredi, ultra-traditionalist, and modern Orthodox branches, and modernist movements such as Reform Judaism, originating in late 18th century Europe, conservative Masorti, originating in 19th century Europe, and other smaller ones, including the Reconstructionist and Renewal movements, which emerged later in the 20th century in the United States. In Israel, variations moderately similar, different from the West, and having roots in the old Yishuv and pre to early state Yemenite infusion, among other influences. For statistical and practical purposes, the distinctions there are based upon a person's attitude to religion. Most Jewish Israelis classify themselves as secular, traditional, religious, or ultra-religious. And then you have other divisions of Judaism in the word reflect being more ethnically and geographically rooted. Beta Israel, which are Ethiopian Jews, and Beni Israel among the ancient Jewish communities of India. Normatively, Judaism excludes from its composition certain groups that may name or consider themselves ethnic Jews but hold key beliefs in sharp contradiction. For example, modern or ancient Messianic Jews. So those are branches of Judaism. So let me click back. It remains undefined. There is no central authority in Judaism in existence today, although the Sanhedrin, the supreme Jewish religious court, would fulfill this role if it were reestablished. Instead, Judaism's principal faith remained debated by the rabbis based on their understanding of the sacred writings, laws, and traditions, which collectively shape its theological and ethical framework. The most accepted version in extent is the opinion of Maimonides. Judaism affirms the existence and uniqueness of God and stresses performance of deeds or commandments alongside adherence to a strict belief system, in contrast to religions such as Christianity, which demand a more explicit identification of God. Faith in Judaism requires one to honor God through adherence to God's instruction, Torah, and the practice of all of the mitzvah. Orthodox Judaism stresses a number of core principles in its education program. Most importantly, believe that there is one single, omniscient, transcendent, non-compound God who created the universe and continues to be concerned with its governance. Traditional Judaism maintained that God established a covenant with the Jewish people at Mount Sinai and revealed his laws and 613 commandments to them in the form of the written and oral Torah. In Rabbinic Judaism, the Torah consists of both the written Torah, Pentateuch, and a tradition of oral law, much of it later codified in sacred writings. See Mishnah and Talmud. Tradition, the practice of Judaism has been devoted to the study of Torah and observance of its laws and commandments. In normative Judaism, the Torah and hence Jewish law itself is unchanging, but interpretation of the law is more open. It is considered a mitzvah, commandment to study and understand the law. The proper counterpart for the general English term faith, as occurring in the expression principles of faith, would be the concept of emunah. In Judaism, the word amen comes from this word and means I trust, believe. While it is generally translated as faith or trust in God, the concept of emunah can more accurately be described as an innate conviction, a perception of truth that transcends reason. Emunah can be enhanced through wisdom, knowledge, understanding, and learning of sacred Jewish writing. But emunah is not simply based on reason, nor can it be understood as the opposite of or standard in contrast to reason. There are a number of basic principles that were formulated by medieval rabbinic authority. These are put forth as fundamental underpinnings inherent in the acceptance and practice of Judaism. All right, let me see here. Okay. Monotheistic conception of God. Monotheism. Judaism is based on a strict monotheism and a belief in one single, indivisible, non-compound God, the Shema Yisrael. One of the most important Jewish prayers encapsulate the monotheistic nature of Judaism. Hear, O Israel, the Lord is our God, the Lord is one. Judaism emphatically rejects any concept of plurality with respect to God, explicitly rejecting polytheism, dualism, and Trinitarianism, which are incompatible with monotheism. As Judaism understands it, the unity of God is stated many times in Jewish tradition. It is the second of Maimonides' 13 principles of faith. Maimonides wrote that this God is one, not two or more than two, but one, whose unity is different from all other unities that there are. He is not one as a genus, which contains many species, is one, nor is he one as a body containing parts and dimensions is one, but he is a unity that which there is no other anywhere. In Jewish tradition, dualistic and Trinitarian conceptions of God are generally referred to as shatuf, partnership, meaning an incorrect but not an idolatrous view. God is the creator of the universe. Most Jews believe that God is creator of the universe. Different sets of Jews view this in different ways. For example, some ultra-Orthodox groups reject the concept of evolution and believe the earth to be only a few thousand years old. Other groups of Orthodox and non-Orthodox Jews do not believe in a literal interpretation of the Genesis creation narrative, and according to that view, Judaism is not in contradiction to the scientific model that states that the age of the universe is around 13.77 billion years old. And okay, let me scroll down. All right, God's creator, the nature of God. The Jewish view that God is eternal with neither beginning nor end, a principle stated in a number of biblical passages. All right, let me scroll. Soul devotion to the Creator. Within Judaism, the essence of worship is deeply rooted in the belief of monotheism, emphasizing the exclusive devotion to the Creator. All right, Revelation. The Hebrew Bible or Tanakh is the Jewish scriptural canon and central source of Jewish law. The word is an acronym formed from the initial Hebrew letters of the three traditional subdivisions of Tanakh: the Torah, teaching, also known as the 5 books of Moses or Pentateuch; the Nevi'im, prophets; and the Ketuvim, writings. The Tanakh contains 24 books in all. Its authoritative version is the Masoretic text. Tradition, the text of the Tanakh was said to have been finalized Council of Jamnia in 70 CE. Although this is uncertain, in Judaism the term Torah refers not only to the 5 books of Moses, but also to all of the Jewish scriptures. The whole of Tanakh and the ethical and moral instruction of the rabbis, the oral Torah. In addition to the Tanakh, there are 2 further textual traditions in Judaism: Mishnah, tractates expounding on Jewish law, and the Talmud, commentary of Mishnah and Torah. These are both codifications and redactions of the Jewish oral tradition and major works in rabbinic Judaism. The Talmud consists of the Babylonian Talmud, produced in Babylon around 600 CE, and the Jerusalem Talmud, produced in the land of Israel circa 400 CE. The Babylonian Talmud is the more extensive of the 2 and is considered the more important. The Talmud is a representation of the Torah through sustained analysis and argument, with unfolding dialogue and contention between rabbinic sages. The Talmud consists of the Mishnah, a legal code, and the Gemara, Aramaic for learning, an analysis and commentary to their code. Rabbi Aidan Steinhaus writes that if the Bible is the cornerstone of Judaism, then the Talmud is the central pillar. No other work has had a comparable influence on the theory and practice of Jewish life, shaping influence on the theory and practice of Jewish life, and states the Talmud is the repository of thousands of years of Jewish wisdom and the oral law, which is as ancient and significant as the written law. The Torah finds expression therein. It is a conglomerate of law, legend, and philosophy, a blend of unique logic and shrewd pragmatism, of history and science, anecdotes and humor. Although its main objective is to interpret and comment on a book of law, it is simultaneously a work of art that goes beyond legislation and its practical application. And although the Talmud is, to this day, the primary source of Jewish law, it cannot be cited as an authority for purposes of ruling. Though based on the principle of tradition and the transmission of authority from generation to generation, it is unparalleled in its eagerness to question and re-examine convention and accepted views and to root out underlying causes. The Talmudic method of discussion and demonstration tries to approximate mathematical precision, but without having recourse to mathematical or logical symbols. The Talmud is the embodiment of the great concept of mitzvah, Talmud, Torah, the positive religious duty of studying Torah, of acquiring learning and wisdom, studying which is its own end and reward. Moses and the Torah. Orthodox and conservative Jews hold that the prophets of Moses is held to be true. He is held to be the chief of all prophets, even of those who came before and after him. This belief was expressed by Maimonides, who wrote that Moses was superior to all prophets, whether they preceded him or arose afterwards. Moses attained the highest possible human level. He perceived God to a degree surpassing every human that ever existed. God spoke to all other prophets through an intermediary. Moses alone did not need this. This is what the Torah means when God said, mouth to mouth, I will speak to him. The great Jewish philosopher Philo understands this type of prophecy to be an extraordinary high level of philosophical understanding which had been reached by Moses and which enabled him to write the Torah through his own rational deduction of natural law. All right, let me continue reading. The origin of the Torah. The Torah is composed of 5 books called in English Genesis, Exodus, Leviticus, Numbers, and Deuteronomy. They chronicle the history of the Hebrews, also contain the commandments that Jews are to follow. Prophecy. Jews believe that the Almighty Creator at times chooses to prophesy. Many of such occurrences are described in the Nevi'im, the books of the prophets. However, since the destruction of the first temple, prophecy has ceased. The oral Torah. Orthodox Jews view the written and oral Torah as the same as Moses taught for all practical purposes. Conservative Jews tend to believe that much of the oral law is divinely inspired, while Reform and Reconstructionist Jews tend to view all of the oral law as an entirely human creation. Traditional Reform movement here that Jews were obliged to obey the ethical but not the ritual commandments of Scripture. Although today many Reformed Jews have adopted many traditional ritual practices. Now, God's relationship with men. Judaism focuses more on how God defines men than one trying to define God. There is therefore a focus on what people are expected to be or do far more than on spelling out theological beliefs. People are born with both a tendency to do good and to do evil. Jewish tradition mostly emphasizes free will, and most Jewish thinkers reject determinism on the basis that free will and the exercise of free choice have been considered a precondition of moral life. Moral indeterminacy seems to be assumed both by the Bible, which bids man to choose between good and evil, and by the rabbis who hold the decision for following the good inclination rather than the evil rests with every individual. Maimonides asserted the compatibility of free will with foreknowledge of God only. A handful of Jewish thinkers have expressed deterministic views. This group includes the medieval Jewish philosopher Haystack Crackers and the 19th century Hasidic Rabbi Mordecai Joseph Leiner of Isbeck. All is necessary for God because he is perfect, but for mankind all is possible by virtue of choice. The two types of view are true with knowing about the prophet who is endeavored with God to be wise and to perform miracles for him. Judaism affirms that people are born with both a Yisur Hatov, an inclination or impulse to do good, and with a Yisur Hara, an inclination or impulse to do evil. These phrases reflect the concept that within each person there are opposing natures, continuing in conflict, and are referenced many times in the rabbinic tradition. The rabbis even recognize the positive value to the Yisur Hara. Without the Yisur Hara, there will be no civilization or other fruits of human labor. Midrash states, without the evil inclination, no one would father a child, build a house, or make a career. The implication that Yisur Hatov and Yisur Hara are best understood not only as moral category of good and evil, but as the inherent conflict within man between selfish and selfish, selfless and selfish orientations. Judaism recognizes two classes of sin: offenses against other people and offense against God. Offense against God may be understood as violation of a contract, the covenant between God and the children of Israel. Once a person has sinned, there are various means by which they may obtain atonement. See atonement in Judaism. And Judaism rejects the belief in original sin. Both ancient and modern Judaism teaching that every person is responsible for his own actions. The existence of some innate sinfulness on each human being was discussed in both biblical Genesis 8:21, Psalm 51:5, and post-biblical source. However, in the biblical verse, this is brought as an argument for divine mercy, as humans cannot be blamed for the nature they were created with. All right, and then we have reward and punishment. The mainstream Jewish view is that God will reward those who observe His commandments and punish those who intentionally transgress them. Examples of rewards and punishments are described throughout the Bible and throughout classical rabbinic literature. The common understanding of this principle is accepted by most Orthodox and conservative and many Reformed Jews. It is generally rejected by the Reconstruction. See also free will and theology. The Bible contains references to Sheol, literal gloom, as the common destination of the dead, which may be compared with the Hades or underworld of ancient religion. And later tradition, this is interpreted either as hell or as a literary expression for death or the grave in general. Israel, chosen for a purpose. God chose the Jewish people to be in a unique covenant with God. The description of this covenant is the Torah itself. God further declared in the Torah through prophecy to Moses that his firstborn is the Israelite. However, closeness and being chosen does not imply exclusivity, as anyone can join and convert. Included in the idea of being chosen is that Jews were chosen for a specific mission, a duty, to be a light unto the nations, and to have a covenant with God as described in the Torah, the Messiah. Judaism acknowledges an afterlife, but does not have a single or systemic way of thinking about the afterlife. Judaism places its overwhelming stress on Olam Hazi, this world, rather than Olam Haba, the world to come. And speculations about the world to come are peripheral to mainstream Judaism. In Perki Avat, Ethics of the Father, it is said that 1 hour of penitence and good deeds in this world is better than all the life of the world to come. But 1 hour of spiritual repose in the world to come is better than all the life of this world, reflecting both a view of the significance of life on earth and the spiritual repose granted to the righteous in the next world. Jews reject the idea that Jesus of Nazareth was the Messiah and agree that the Messiah has not yet come. Throughout Jewish history, there have been a number of Jewish Messiah claimants considered false by Jews, including most notably Simon Bar Kokhba and Sabbatai Ziva, whose followers were known as Sabbateans. And so, all right, it's Judaism. Now we over here in Encyclopedia Britannica. Dualism in cosmology. Then we're going to click over to Wikipedia. Dualism in religion, the doctrine that the world or reality consists of two basic, opposed, and irreducible principles that account for all that exists and has played an important role in the history of thought and of religion. The nature and significance. In religion, dualism means the belief in two supreme opposed powers or gods or sets of divine or demonic beings that cause the world to exist. It may conveniently be contrasted with monism, which sees the world as consisting of one principle, such as mind, spirit, or matter. With monotheism or with various pluralism and polytheisms, we see a multiplicity of principles or powers at work, as is indicated below. However, the situation is not always clear and simple, a matter of one or two or many, for there are monotheistic, monistic, and polytheistic religions with dualistic aspects. Various distinctions may be discerned in the types of dualism in general. In the first place, dualism may be either absolute or relative. In a radical or absolute dualism, the two principles are held to exist from eternity. For example, in the Iranian dualism, Zoroastrianism and Manichaeism, both the bright and beneficent and the sinister and destructive principles are from eternity. In a mitigated or relative dualism, one of the two principles may be derived from or presuppose the other as a basis. For example, the Bogomils, a medieval heretical Christian group, held that the devil is a fallen angel who came from God and was the creator of the human body, into which he managed by trickery to have God infuse a soul. Here the devil is a subordinate being and not co-eternal with God, the absolute eternal being. This then is clearly qualified, not a radical dualism. Both radical and mitigated types of dualism are found among different groups of the late medieval Cathari, a Christian heretical movement closely related to the Bogomil. Another and perhaps more important distinction is that between dialectical and eschatological dualism. Dialectical dualism involves an eternal dialectic or tension of two opposed principles, such as in Western culture, the one and the many, or idea and matter, or space, called by Plato the receptacle, and in Indian culture, Maya, the illusory world of sense, experience, and multiplicity, and Atman Brahman, the essential identity of self and ultimate reality. Dialectical dualism ordinarily implies a cyclical or eternally repetitive view of history. Eschatological dualism, a dualism concerned with the ultimate destiny of humanity and the world, how things will be in the last time. On the other hand, conceives of the final resolution of the present dualistic state of things, in which evil will be eliminated at the end of a linear history constituted of a series of unrepeatable events instead of a cyclical, repetitive one. The ancient Iranian religions, Zoroastrianism and Manichaeism and Gnosticism, a religio-philosophical movement influential in the Hellenistic world, provide examples of eschatological dualism, a type of thought such as Platonism that insists on a profound harmony in the cosmos, and thus more radically dualistic because of its irreducibly dialectical character than Zoroastrianism and Manichaeism, with their emphasis on the cosmic struggle between two antithetical principles, good and evil. Midway between these extremes is Gnostic dualism, which has an ontology or theory of being of an Orphic Platonic type among ancient civilizations and people, but which also affirms the final disappearance and annihilation of evil with the eventual destruction of the material world, and thus comprises both dialectical and eschatological dualism. In philosophy, dualism is often identified with the doctrine of transcendence, that there is a separate realm or being above and beyond the world, as opposed to monism, which holds that the ultimate principle is inside the world, immanent in the disciplines concerned with the study of religion. However, religious dualism refers not to the distinction or separation of God and the world, but to the doctrine of two basic principles, a doctrine that, moreover, may easily be compatible with a form of monism, Orphism, or the Advaita school of Vedanta, that makes the opposition between the one and the many absolute and sees in multiplicity merely a fragmentation or illusory obliteration of the one. Okay, you have historical varieties of religious dualism among ancient civilizations and peoples. Or you have, like in Egypt and Mesopotamia, Greece in the Hellenistic world, Iran, even among South and East Asian religions, such over in India and in China. Then you have among religions of the West, dualism have appeared in Western religion chiefly under the impact of Gnostic influence. For example, Judaism. No real dualism is found in Judaism except in the Gnostic and theosophic forms of Jewish mysticism known as Kabbalah. The presence of a vigorous and universal monotheism implies not only faith in a single creative God, but also faith in a God who is the uncontested master of history, and neither Satan nor Belial detracts from this absolute monotheism. then also, let me see. And then you have Christianity. When it comes to Christianity, dualistic concepts appear principally in its Gnostic development, but even in the 2nd century Judaizing sect of the Incretites, which was not really Gnostic, there were dualistic aspects that had modified some tenets of later Judaism. And then it's talking about the concepts of a similar type are also found in the psalm or hymn of the Nessenes. Nessene is the Hebrew term for Ophite, mentioned above, and in the Song of the Pearl, in the Gnostic Acts of Thomas, here also occurs the concept of a Savior to be saved, who has been sent from above and was made a prisoner by darkness. This basic concept was developed fully only in monasticism. And then it said the Gnostic dualist view survived in late antiquity and in the Middle Ages, both in the East, among the Mandaeans, in the Yazidi, and some extreme sects within the Shiite branch of Islam, and in the West, among the Bogomils and Cathari. It is still present today in modern theosophy. And then you have among religions of modern indigenous peoples, like I said, you have all this. You have dualistic concepts of modern indigenous peoples. So this dualistic stuff. Now let me click over here to Wikipedia. Moral dualism is the belief of the great complement of or conflict between the benevolent and malevolent. It simply implies that there are two moral opposites that work independent of any interpretation of what might be moral and independent of how these may be represented. Moral opposites might, for example, exist in a worldview that has one God, more than one God, or none. By contrast, duotheism, bitheism, or ditheism implies at least two gods, while bitheism implies harmony, ditheism implies rivalry and opposition, such as between good and evil, or light and dark, or summer and winter. For example, a ditheistic system could be one in which one God is a creator and the other a destroyer. In theology, dualism can also refer to the relationship between the deity and creation, or the deity and the universe. See, theistic dualism. Their form of dualism is a belief shared in certain traditions of Christianity and Hinduism. Alternatively, in ontological dualism, the world is divided into two overarching categories. Within Chinese culture and philosophy, the opposition and combination of the universe's two basic principles are expressed as yin and yang, and a traditional foundational doctrine of Taoism, Confucianism, and some Chinese Buddhist schools. All right, let me scroll down. Okay, moral dualism is the belief of the great complemental conflict between the benevolent and the malevolent, like ditheism or bitheism. Moral dualism does not imply the absence of monist or monotheistic principles. Moral dualism simply implies that there are two moral opposites at work, independent of any interpretation of what might be moral, and, unlike ditheism and bitheism, independent of how these may be represented. For example, Mazdaism, Mazdian, Zoroastrianism is both dualistic and monotheistic, but not monist by definition, since in that philosophy, God, the creator, is purely good, and the antithesis, which is also uncreated, is an absolute one. Mandeanism is monotheistic and Gnostic, and in its cosmology, the world of light that is good is contrasted with the world of darkness or underworld that is evil. Zoroastrianism, 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 and Manichaeism are representative of a dualistic and monist philosophy, since each has a supreme and transcendent first principle from which the two equal but opposite entities then emanate. This is also true for the suppressed Christian Gnostic religions such as Bogomians, Catharism, and so on. More complex forms of monist dualism also exist. For instance, in Hermetism, where announced thought that is described to have created man brings forth both good and evil, dependent on interpretation, whether it receives prompting from the God or from the demon. Duality with pluralism is considered a logical fallacy. Now I'm down here where it says duotheism, bitheism, and ditheism. When used with regard to multiple gods, dualism may refer to duotheism, bitheism, or ditheism. Although ditheism and bitheism imply moral dualism, they are not equivalent. Ditheism and bitheism implies at least two gods, while moral dualism does not necessarily imply theism at all. Both bitheism and ditheism imply belief in two equally powerful gods with complementary or antinomous properties. However, while bitheism implies harmony, ditheism implies rivalry and opposition, such as between good and evil, bright and dark, summer and winter. For example, a ditheism would be one in which one God is creative, the other is destructive. In the original conception of Zoroastrianism, for example, Ahura Mazda was the spirit of ultimate good, while Ahriman, Angra Mainya, was the spirit of ultimate evil. In bitheistic system, by contrast, where the two deities are not in conflict or opposition, one could be male and the other female. Duotheism. One well-known example of a bitheistic or duotheistic theology based on gender polarity is found in the neo-pagan religion of Wicca. In Wicca, dualism is represented in the belief of a god and a goddess as a dual partnership in ruling the universe. All right. And now you have radical and mitigated dualism. Radical dualism or absolute dualism, which posits two co-equal divine forces. Manichaeism conceives of two previously coexisting realms of light and darkness, which become embroiled in conflict owing to the chaotic actions of the latter. Mitigated dualism is where one of the two principles is in some way inferior to the other. Such classical Gnostic movements as the Thethians conceived of the material world as being created by a lesser divinity than the true God that was the object of their devotion. The spiritual world conceived of as being radically different from the material world, coextensive with the true God and the true home of certain enlightened members of humanity. Thus, these systems were expressive of a feeling of acute alienation within the world, and their resultant aim was to allow the soul to escape the constraints presented by the physical realm. Now, when you theistic dualism. In theology, dualism can refer to a relationship between God and creation or God and universe. This form of dualism is a belief shared in certain traditions of Christianity and Hinduism. All right. Rationalism in Christianity, the dualism between God and creation has existed as a central belief in multiple historical sets and traditions of Christianity, including Marcionism, Catharism, Paulicianism, and other forms of Gnostic Christianity. Christian dualism refers to the belief that God and creation are distinct, but interrelated through an indivisible bond. However, Gnosticism is a diverse, syncretistic religious movement consisting of various belief systems, generally united in the belief in the distinction between a supreme transcendent God and a blind, evil demiurge responsible for creating the material universe, thereby trapping the divine spark within matter. Gnosticism is not limited to Christianity. It also incorporates belief from other Abrahamic traditions, such as early Jewish sects. So let's click on this syncretism. Syncretism is the practice of combining different beliefs in various schools of thought. Syncretism involves the merging or assimilation of several originally discrete traditions, especially in the theology and mythology of religion, thus asserting an underlying unity and allowing for an inclusive approach to other faiths. While syncretism in art and culture is sometimes likened to eclecticism, in the realm of religion it specifically denotes a more integrated merging of beliefs into a united system, distinct from eclecticism, which implies a selective adoption of elements from different traditions without necessarily blending them into a new cohesive belief system. Syncretism also manifests in politics, known as syncretic politics. All right, let me scroll down to religious syncretism. Religious syncretism is the blending of two or more religious belief systems into a new system, or the incorporation into a religious tradition of belief from unrelated traditions. This can occur for many reasons, and the latter scenario happens quite commonly in areas where multiple religious traditions exist in proximity and function actively in a culture, or when a culture is conquered and the conquerors bring their religious beliefs within them, but do not succeed in entirely eradicating the old beliefs or especially practices. Religions may have syncretic elements to their beliefs or hidden, but adherents of so labeled systems often frown on implying the label, especially adherents who belong to revealed religious systems such as the Abrahamic religions or any system that exhibits an exclusivist approach. Such adherents sometimes see syncretism as a betrayal of their pure faith. By this reasoning, adding an incompatible belief corrupts the original religion, rendering it no longer true. Alright, so let me click back over. Alright, let me see. Hinduism. Then you have ontological dualism. Alternatively, dualism can mean the tendency of humans to perceive and understand the world as being divided into two overarching categories. In this sense, it is dualistic when one perceives a tree as a thing separate from everything surrounding it. This form of ontological dualism exists in Taoism and Confucianism, and a foundational theory within traditional Chinese medicine, beliefs that divide the universe into the complementary composition of yin and yang. In traditions such as classical Hinduism, Samkhya Yoga, Vaisheshika, Vaisheshika, and the latter Vedanta school, which accepted the theory of gunas. Chinese Pure Land and Zen Buddhism or Islamic Sufism. A key to enlightenment is transcending this sort of dualistic thinking without merely substituting dualism with monism or pluralism. All right. Then you have other religions like the Samoyed peoples and things in All right. Now let's click over here to mind-body dualism. In the philosophy of mind-body dualism denotes either the view that mental phenomena are non-physical, or that the mind and body are distinct and separable. Thus, it encompasses a set of views about the relationship between mind and matter, as well as between subject and object, and is contrasted with other positions such as physicalism and inactivism in the mind-body problem. All right. Now, dualism is closely associated with the thought of Rene Descartes, 64, who holds that the mind is a non-physical and therefore non-spatial substance. Descartes clearly identified the mind with consciousness and self-awareness and distinguished this from the physical brain as the seat of intelligence. Hence, he was the first documented Western philosopher to formulate the mind-body problem in the form in which it exists today. However, the theory of substance dualism has many advocates. In contemporary philosophers such as Richard Swinburne, William Haskell, J.P. Moreland, E.J. Lowe, Charles Taylor Farrow, Sayed Jabber, Masa Virad, and John Foster. Dualism is contrasted with various kinds of monism. Substance dualism is contrasted with all forms of materialism, but property dualism may be considered a form of non-reductive physicalism. All right, when you come to types, ontological dualism makes dual commitments about the nature of existence as it relates to mind and matter, and can be divided into three different types. Substance dualism asserts that mind and matter are fundamentally distinct kinds of foundations. Property dualism suggests the ontological distinction lies in the differences between properties of mind and matter, as in emergentism. And number three, predicate dualism claims the irreducibility of mental predicates to physical predicates. All right. Okay, so like I said, that's mind-body dualism. All right, I'm gonna get ready to end today's video. So like I said earlier, I'm going to repeat it again before I end today's video. See, when you get into the root of Gnosticism, only thing you're talking about is some anal sex. See, when they were talking about the Cathars and the Bogomils and all these other groups, the Sethians and all these stupid people, whatever you're trying to make up, all these lies you're trying to make up, the root of all that is anal sex. Straight to the point. No beating around the bush, no sugarcoating, nothing. It's anal sex. That's all these stupid people doing. They'll make up some kind of religion, call it a religion, and say God or gods, you know. Because let's not forget that around the time of the historical Jesus, around the 1st century, you know, you had this group of people calling themselves Jews, a bunch of heretics, like the Pharisees and the Sadducees and the Essenes. And then you had all these secular Jews, you know, the church fathers in the church. They identified the people as being Jews. You know, they can be secular Jews or claim to be a Pharisee or a Sadducee or the Essene or whatever. Some heretics. And that's another thing. When you say something about being a Gnostic or something, when you say that word, see in Hebrew, See, when you go to heresy in Judaism, the Greek term for heresy originally denoted division, sect, religious, or philosophical party is applied by Josephus to the three Jewish sects, Sadducees, Pharisees, in the sense of a schism to be deprecated. The word occurs once in 1 Corinthians 11:19, Galatians 5:20, and particularly in 2 Peter 2:1. Hence, heretic in the sense of factious, Titus 2:10. The specific rabbinical term for heresy or religious division due to an unlawful spirit is manium, kinds of belief. The singular men for heretic or Gnostic is coined idiomatically like God and Haaretz. See, not the law. You shall not cut yourselves. Is interpreted by the rabbi. You shall not form divisions, but shall form one bond. Besides the term men for heretic, the Talmud used the words hitsonim, outsiders, epicoros, and kofa by Torah, or kofa by Ikar. He denies the fundamentals of faith. Also, porish men, dak, tibur, he who deviates from the customs of the community. Religious fundamentalists claim that all these groups are consigned to Gehinnom for all eternity and have no possibility of a portion in the world to come. And so, like I said, in the definition of manium is you're a heretic or Gnostic. In speaking Hebrew, so in heresy in Judaism, See, when it comes to lower stone disciple, see, you're not going to pull that crap. Go around trying to run off at the mouth like you don't justify Gnosticism. You gonna prove, no, you ain't gonna prove nothing. See, in Judaism, they already made it clear. In Judaism, the rabbi already told you a heretic, and that's what they done. And then in the Catholic faith, they telling you the same daggone thing, that you a heretic. That's what it means. You are a heretic in Judaism and in the Catholic faith. You're a heretic. Then when it came to this daggone stupid Protestant mess, you supposed to be a heretic. Supposed to be a heretic. But that's what they are. That's what the Protestants is, a heretic. So being that the Gnostics are heretic, I guess the Protestants, they ain't finna be, because that's what they are, heretics. Gonna be in the Gehinnom. Bunch of damn heretics. And the doggone Protestants and their Protestant Reformation. Then we were reading about the Tetragrammaton. How important is the Dead Sea Scroll? It's very, very important. The find it, just like all these fragments they found. They found the Hippolytus of Rome, even though the identity of the person that being identified as being Hippolytus of Rome is in question, exactly who this person is. The refutation of all heresies, that's been found. That's not questioned. Book number 1 has been found. Books 2 and 3 been lost. Books 4 through 10 have been found. So, in exposing pagan beliefs, as well as 33 Gnostic Christian groups have been exposed. That is not questioned. Only thing you want to question, people want to bring up about who this Hippolytus Rome is. Well, I mean, you can sit around and talk about who Hippolytus Rome is, or isn't. You can do that all day and night. But the refutation of all heresy has been found. Now, book 1 has been found. Book 2 and 3 been lost. Books 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, they have been found. They found. So you ain't finna be sitting around trying to argue with anybody about the refutation of all heresies. Because a lot of it talking about them 33 Gnostic Christian groups that have been already identified as being a heresy. Already been found to be heresy. You ain't finna be sitting around arguing about that. No. And you can sit around and try to talk about the Gnostic theologian codexes that have been found. The Askew Codex, the Bruce Codex, the Berlin Codex, the Nagamon Library. All that's being studied. All that's being investigated and researched. All of it being investigated and researched. And so you don't have nothing to stand on. You ain't got nothing to stand on. So up there in Chicago, Lower Stone Disciple, like I've been saying all the time, just like Minister Rico, he is the leader. Benny Lee and Jimmy and all the rest of a lot of many other men and the women. The Vice Lords, Edwin Pepperlo Perry, the founder of the Vice Lord. True, real, and true. Jeff Ford, the Black Prince Stone. Real and true. Wakita is the leader. Real and true. The Black Disciples. Don Dirt and Cowboy and OG. Them the leaders. Don Brick. He the leader. Them the leaders. A lot of the Black Disciples that getting old, just like Don Dirt got old. He's still a leader. He the leader. Cliff and Killer Red, that's the leader. King David Bonsdale and Laverne and all them guys that we were reading about who started the Black Disciple. That's real. That's true. Should have never been no gangster disciple, no supreme gangster. How the hell? And talking about some black gangster new breed, man. Some peons. They had a nerve to try to be violent. See, that's what that Gnostic nonsense do. It's just like that so-called Crip gang, that pirate, that blood gang. The Black Peace Stone, that ain't what started. It came from Chicago. And see, that's the reason why I was telling. See, them Asian people that came from Cambodia, and, them tiny, what they call them, tiny rabbits and all, they go for all the Asian people. They were not from here in America. They don't know the history. See, they ain't got no business being affiliated or associated with no Crip gang, no blood gang, for that very reason. They not from America. The Pacific Islands, they don't know all this stuff that we know about the history up there in Chicago and about people down in the South. You ain't got no business being affiliated or associated with no blood gang, no Crip gang, nothing like that. Because all they doing lying. All it is that Gnostic stupid. That stupid stuff, Gnostic stuff. That's the sorority and fraternity going around lying to a lot of men and women back in the 40s and the 50s and 60s who didn't have a whole lot of education. Black/African American were denied education. Look, I'm going to get ready to end today's video. If you got the opportunity to vote, exercise your right to vote. Because you had that right. That's your right. You know, unless you're a convicted felon, like myself, I'm a convicted felon. I can't vote. But I still can voice my opinion. I can't cast my vote. But if I could vote, I most certainly wouldn't be voting for no Donald Trump. I know that. I know that for a fact. Ain't no way in the world. Ain't no way. I'll be casting my vote for Kamala Harris. And that's what I encourage people. Vote for Kamala Harris. Do not even consider this stupid person named Donald Trump. Because they're just being stupid. You just stupid just like him. Vote for Kamala Harris. That's doing what her Vice President Tim Walz. That's sense. That's making sense. You ain't got no business casting no vote for no Donald Trump. That's just stupid. You just stupid just like him. That's all it is to it, straight to the point. No beating around the bush. If I could vote, I'd cast my vote for Kamala Harris and Tim Walz. Ain't no way in the world I'd be sitting around talking about no Donald Trump. Man, no. Absolutely not. Absolutely not. That's just being stupid. No sense at all. I mean, just this week, man, this guy had a nerve to be sitting up on Fox and Friends, sitting up there talking about gonna get rid of the Department of Education. Man, look, cast your vote for Kamala Harris and Vice President Tim Walz, because this guy here is out there out of his mind. He way out there out in the left field somewhere. And then, I mean, I don't even want to get into it, man. It's just one stupid remark or comment every day. And the news media he's just constantly being in the news media, just saying stupid stuff. That's all he do. Just stand up have a big political rally, and just stand in a political rally and just say stupid stuff all day. Just you can't be serious to think about voting for this guy. You can't be, no. Because you just as stupid as he is. Vote for Kamala Harris and Tim Walz. The country will be better off. Now look, I'm going to get ready to end today's video. Again, my name is Eric D. Johnson, also on the BrightShine. I live right here in the city of Memphis. It's in the county, Shelby, state of Tennessee. I thank all my family, my support for your continued encouragement, support, and I thank my Lord and Savior Jesus Christ, Son of God, for all the blessings and the guidance He provides me as well as all of us with. And you know, there's still wars being fought. You know, there's a war being fought in Ukraine between the Russians and the Ukrainians. You know, pray that there can be peace. Yeah, still had this war being fought in Israel, and you know, a lot of Palestinian people have become you know, refugees. Their whole lives have been completely destroyed. You know, you got people that are Palestinian. A lot of people believe in Islam. You have a small minority of Christians, you know, and things of that nature. You have a large segment of Palestinians that are Sunni Muslim. Then you have another segment of the Palestinian population that's Shiite Muslim. And so they get it. They have differences with one another about their interpretation of the Islamic faith. And then you got this issue about Israel and the Palestinian and Israel state. And so the Sunni Muslims, you know, and of course the United Nations is continuing to address this whole Palestinian Israel issue. But continue to pray, because there's still a war being fought, and then as well as the hostages, which is which is stupid. It never, it's never. There's no valid reason for hostages to been taken. You ain't gonna never get what you ain't gonna never get anything that you politically or that you tried to achieve. Only thing it's gonna lead to is what it is now, war. A lot of the people are being killed, including the leaders of the, just what happened this week. The person that was in the leader of the Palestinian Shiites, the Israelis killed him. He got killed, assassinated. He got assassinated. A lot of the Palestinian Shiite, the leaders, they being killed. They being assassinated. And Iranians. They being killed by the Israelis. And then over there across the border in Lebanon, same thing. Hezbollah, some of the leaders have already been assassinated by the Israelis. Then you got a war in Sudan and, things like that. So, as well as other parts of Africa, around the world. So let's continue to pray. Continue to pray. And until next time, you take care of yourself, which each and every. And also, let me say this. Here in the United States of America, a lot of natural disasters, as well as around the world, natural disasters happen: tornadoes, hurricanes, floods, wildfires, natural disasters. Then the winter, it's going to be wintertime. It's going to get cold. You're going to have snowstorms, just like last year. It was really bad. And then other parts of the world, So, like I said, natural disasters, they happen on a regular basis. So continue to pray and just continue to pray. And until next time, you take care of yourself, which each and one of you very best.